Tripping. Tripping with Theo Bowl.
Come on, Dre.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Tripping with Theo Bold. I'm your host, Andre Theo Bold. Welcome to the show. Glad y'all could tune in. Yeah, man. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. As the legendary rapper Rakim said, it's been a long time. Yeah, it's been a minute, man. My apologies, man. I've been out of commission for like the past. I think my last post or live stream may have been like back in like September or August of 25, I think. Had a lot going on, man. You know what I mean? Had a lot happen. And we're gonna talk about it. Yeah, so my beard looking kind of ashy, but whatever. Whatever is what it is. Yeah, had a lot happen, man. So like last autumn, right? That's like, I guess that's the season or whatever. I had a friend of mine pass away, man. You know, we were it was the founding commissioner of one of my fantasy football leagues. His name was Kev, man. And man, and I found out he passed away like in the draft, like because he used to, like, he was the founding commissioner of our fantasy football league, and then someone else took over, or he handed it off to somebody else, and he still played and participated. And then you know, like Kev probably was the one I was the closest one, or the closest to in the chat. Like I was friends with everybody, not chat, in the in the fantasy league. And you know, Kev, like we didn't talk every day, but I mean, when it was basketball season, he would always hit me up about his Warriors, you know, his dubs, you know, because he knows I'm a Wizards fan. And then during fantasy league, he would always try to get me with some okey doke, rinky dink BS trades, you know. And then also, you know, Kev was the one that made this mug, you know what I'm saying? He was a self promoter. He was a self promoter, like he basically, or not promoter. He was a self, I don't know the word to use. He was a self starter. Like he went out and just did for himself, you know. And he built up his company. He had a mug making company, and he was able to, you know, quit his job and, you know, be successful at that, you know. But nah, man, it was weird, man. Cause right before the draft, I was texting him and I wasn't getting a response, and I didn't see his name in the fantasy league. So I was texting to see, hey, what's going on? Like, why aren't you in the league? And right when I signed in and the new commissioner was there, I was like, hey, you know, I think I signed in like a little early or whatever. Not too early, but a little early. And I was like, hey, what happened to Kev, man? And I could just see the look of distraught on his face, and he was like holding back. And he just started off, he was like, hey, unfortunately, you know, Kev's not with us. You know, he passed away like a few months ago. So when he said that, man, I literally like shouted, man, and I, you know, cut my camera off for a minute, man. And I cut my camera off for pretty much the whole draft, because I was there. I was like wiping away tears while I'm making picks, like just to know that Kev is gone, you know? So, and I wasn't in like their group text, or I never got the message, you know what I'm saying? So it really like kind of messed me up for a little bit, you know, still messing me up, because, you know, dude was a young guy, you know, good guy, you know? So RIP Kev, you know, and it was like a few months ago, or a few months before he passed, I picked up the mugs that he made and we, I paid for them and everything. Yeah, I can't even really like wrap my head around that, man. Still, I'm still like processing it right now. So, um, had that happen. What else happened, man? Had a had a fender bender, had an accident. Someone backed into me and hit me, or they hit my car, and they were trying to claim that they weren't at fault, but I had the whole thing on video. Um, and then I went through the insurance and I filed the claim, and the insurance tried to say that their client wasn't at fault, and I had even after sending the video, right? Even after sending the video, like they said I was like 45% at fault or 40% at fault, and he was 65% at fault. And I'm like, how the fuck does that even add up? You know? So had to deal with the insurance, and now I'm dealing with legal, so it's an ongoing thing. So I have to, you know, do certain things or whatever. Yeah, that was something that was happening throughout last year, and it's still happening now that I'm still dealing with. Um, and then what else? Oh yeah, man. Me and my mom, man, had to deal with a squatter. We had a squatter um on our Buffalo property, or our property in Buffalo. Um, yeah. Oh, we had someone that turned into a squatter, and then I had to fly up last minute to help with that process, and that was an adventure of itself, you know. Um, I don't want to talk too much about that right now because uh I got other things to talk about, but maybe in another live or another pod I might talk about it. But the whole squatting game, man, is ridiculous, man. Like they have rights, so allegedly. It depends on how you frame things, right? So was dealing with that. Then I had to fly back to Buffalo to actually go work on the property. I worked on some of the doors in our property. I installed some smart locks and stuff. You know, um, one thing I learned about my craftsmanship skills, right, is I can't mortise for shit, right? I cannot mortise for shit. Like I thought the word was mortise. I didn't even know what like the way I was saying it. I kept saying mortise, but it's called mortise, right? And mortise is when you just look at the side of your door, right? And that lock module, or the um door level module that goes in on the side of that door, like just take a look at how flush that is. And mortising is when you can chisel out the wood to make that module piece fit in the door so it's flush, right? It sounds complicated. It's hard. Like I was struggling with it. I mean, I'm pretty sure they have tools for it, but I was using the chisel, and yeah, my mortising skills are not good. I'll just leave it at that. But the door shuts. The door shut and closed, so that's all that matters, right? But yes, I was dealing with that. Then what else happened, man? Yeah, I was in my head for a minute too because I did a bucket list equivalent. Well, it's not really a bucket list actually. It's a I thought, I'm not trying to like get into this right now, but I did a um it's a thing at Chocolate Sundays called the Sweet Spot, right? It's at the Laugh Factory. And I did it early, and when I first did it, I thought it was like a bucket list kind of thing. So I'm thinking, let me just bring the material that I'm working on right now to show them that I'm working on new material that can still hit. Um, and it's a produced thing, and you know, I took a L. You know, um, I got some laughs in there, but it wasn't like my best work at all by far. So I was in my head about that for a minute. Um, So, is what it is, you know. Um, so that's that. And then what else? Then I had to go home for Christmas, right? So I had a lot go on within the last like 4 months of last year, you know. So God willing, this year, what happens is uh I'm in situations to where I can, you know, produce and do what I need to do, irregardless of what happens, So, right, because it's like in the movie Crimson Tide, right? You remember the movie Crimson Tide, and Gene Hackman had that line where where Denzel was the XO officer, and um basically they were fighting over when to run a fire drill on the boat, and Denzel wanted to run things where everybody was organized, where Gene Hackman's character wanted to run the drill during chaos, right? And there was a I think a person had a heart attack, or there was like a lot of things going on at one time, and that's when Gene Hackman's character ran the fire drill, um, and then Gene Hackman has that quote, where he said, um, like, do you want to run things when things are just hunky dory? He said, what did he say? He said, we don't run fire drills when things are hunky dory, right? So I got to get down to the point to where I can still execute and produce content um when things aren't hunky dory, right? Give me 1 second. I got to fix something right quick. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Had a little technical difficulty I had to work through. So yeah, we here. Let's see what's going on here. But anyways, so that's why I've been gone for some time. There's no excuse. You got to find ways to get things done when things even when things aren't hunky dory. All right, so now let's talk about the subject at hand. So, um in case you guys didn't know, or in case you guys haven't heard, the coach, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, or the former coach of the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott, was relieved of his duties. I don't know exactly how he was let go. I'm not sure if it was mutual, or I'm not sure if it was a. I don't know. All I know is that it just said he was fired, right? So, first and foremost, man, I want to give I want to give credit where credit is due. Um, I got a lot of respect for Coach McDermott, man. Sean McDermott brought stability to the franchise. I feel like he brought stability to the franchise, right? Because there were years where we had coaches for like that did like one and done, or 2 years, like they were done in like 1 or 2 years, man. Like we had like Dick Duran and Chan Gailey, and the list goes on, right? After Marv Levy, we were kind of doing new coaches every 2 years. Um, but it's kind of like the whole story with Moses, right? Like Moses led his people to the promised land, but he didn't, or to the promised land, but he didn't make it himself, you know? Um, And to me, that to me is like what sucks, because I kind of thought about this last night, right? Because last night I was having a convo with a friend of mine, and we were both talking about, because we talk football all the time, and I mean, shout out to Zen, but we were talking, man, and I told him, I said, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Sean McDermott got let go. Um, like I was like, I was on the fence with it, right? Like if we kept him, I would have been like, okay, let's see what happens. But when you go to seven straight playoff, when you go to seven straight playoffs, or when you have 7 straight years of making the playoffs and then you don't make it to the Super Bowl, there's something wrong, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a new result is insanity, right? Same thing with Coach Tomlin, right? A lot of respect for Mike Tomlin, winning, like he had 10 winning seasons in Pittsburgh, but never won a playoff game in those 10 years. He won a Super Bowl, but after that, it was, for 10 years, he never won a playoff game. And I don't think it's due to his coaching ability. I think it was due to other things, right? Like, for example, after, like, there was no plan for after Ben Roethlisberger, right? And I think they lucked up with Big Ben, but there was no plan for post Big Ben. You know what I mean? And what happened was the team never got bad enough to get a low enough pick to get an elite quarterback, and the team was, and as a result, the team was never able to get out. They were never able to get out of the middle of the pack. So that's what happens, right? But still, and at the end of the day, like doing the same thing and expecting a different result is insanity. But yeah, so at the end of the day, results matter. Um, and Bills Mafia is split on this, man. I've been going back and forth with members in Bills Mafia, man, in the chats, and some people are really in their feelings, like some people were like, yeah, we got to get rid of him, man. Just get. And I was like, I don't like the word get rid of, but we did have to move on, I think. But other people were like, oh, we made the stupidest decision ever, and we're gonna go back to the dungeon days, and we're gonna go back to being terrible, and Sean McDermott built the culture and all this and all that. So here's where we have to look at a little history, right? Here's where we have to look at history and really understand, how the Bills management got to be where it is and what are the issues, right? So, before I say that, let me just go ahead and preface everything with the what was it? In case you guys didn't see, there was the AFC, what is it? The divisional playoff game between the Broncos and the Bills, and we lost in heartbreak fashion, as we always do, or that's how we mainly lose games. It's in heartbreak fashion. And there was a lot of bad play calling. I felt like we didn't stick with what worked in the game. Like when we had Josh Allen under center, and we had a condensed formation where we brought our tight ends in and everybody close. And when we ran James Cook to the angles, he got like 10 yards of carry, and he fumbled once, but I mean, that happens, but there was no reason to abandon that, and then to me, the biggest blunder of all was panicking at the end of the first half with 9 seconds on the clock and trying to force something, which ended up costing us 3 points, right? So that to me was the game. But anyways, let's take a look at the history of how the Bills organization got to where they're at, right? So before So around 2013, 2014, right? I think 2012 is when Ralph Wilson passed away, and there was big turmoil about what was going to happen to the Bills. I think you had like 11 potential owners that wanted to buy the Bills, including Trump. He wanted to buy the Bills. Um, you had John Bon Jovi, who wanted to buy the Bills, but his secret plan was to try to move him to Canada. So you had like 11 potential owners of the Bills. And then Terry Pagula stepped in, or sold off his shares of he sold off shares of his fracking company. And then that's when because I followed all the potential owners, and I knew that Pagula was going to buy the Bills. Also, I have members of the Bills Tailgate Association that has pretty good on street intel. So they told me that like way before, like not to worry, the Bills aren't going anywhere. So when we hired Terry Pagula, Doug Whaley was a remnant GM from the previous regime, right? So Doug Whaley was working with the Pagulas when the Pagulas purchased the team. Then they had to find a new head coach, right? So I'm probably mixing up like, or leaving out key details, right? But for the purpose of this discussion, I'm just letting you know like how we got to where we're at, right? Of what's important, right? So the main thing is Doug Whaley and the Pagulas hired Sean McDermott as the head coach. So then when they brought in Sean McDermott, right? McDermott then, or the Pagulas, right? Or we don't know who. I don't know exactly who had what share in what. But once McDermott came on, they fired Doug Whaley and then brought in Brandon Beane, who's our current general manager. So a lot of people don't see an issue with that, right? They think that a lot of people also forgot that Brandon Beane didn't hire Sean McDermott, right? But at the same token, those guys have ties back in the Carolina days, and people assume that just because they had ties going way back to the Carolina days, that they buddy best friends, right? And that's not necessarily the case. So, so here we are, right? Let me show you a picture right quick, man. Because like pictures are worth 1,000 words. Let me just show y'all a picture of this, right? This is gonna have y'all cracking up, or not, maybe not. I mean, but it makes me laugh. So, damn it, if it makes me laugh, I'm gonna show this shit. Here we go. Okay, why is it still showing that? I don't want that. Huh. Give me 1 second. Go to my quick term. Go to Let me close that out. Let me go ahead and restart that. And then new movie recording. There we go. That's what I wanted to show you. There we go. Now look at this image right here. This is hilarious, right? So this here on the left is Coach McDermott. This is when he first came onto the team. Let me blow the picture up. And on the right is Doug Whaley, the old GM. So let me blow this up, man. can you see this exchange? This exchange does not look pleasant at all, right? This does not look good at all. McDermott got to look like, yo, your ass is gone. We getting you out of here, right? And Doug Whaley is like, it looks like he's accepting his role of, you know what? Yeah, I'm out. I'm being pushed out. Like we all know when we're gonna get like pushed out of somewhere. When a new regime comes in, you know when you're gonna get forced out. So Doug Whaley has the look like Doug Whaley has that look like, I know I'm gone. I'm done. And McDermott is like, yeah, this is my team now. Give me the keys. Right? Once again, to quote Crimson Tide, right? When Commander Hunter, who was played by Gene Hackman, he said, "Give me the keys, Hunter." It's like that's the same thing. Give me the keys, right? That's what that shit looked like. So I'm just giving you context into a point that I'm trying to make, right? So with that being said, right, a lot of people assume that when McDermott came on and brought in Brandon Beane, that hey, those guys are buddy buddy, you know? And now people like half of Bills Mafia split because you got some fans that are like, the players let McDermott down, and they feel like, Brandon Beane did McDermott dirty because McDermott brought him in and pulled him in just to get stabbed in the back by, Brandon Beane, his boy, quote unquote. And we don't know, we don't know the relationship between these two guys, right? Just because people have been working together for a long time does not mean that they buddy buddy. It don't mean that. I'm not saying that they aren't or that they weren't. I'm just saying that all we know is what the media tells us. That's all we know at the end of the day. Right? So, here's my conjecture, or here's something to think about, right? I'm not saying this is the case, but it's something to ponder, right? Like, what if, right? Like, what if Sean McDermott brought in, and when we say brought in, I don't think he actually hired Brandon Beane. I think McDermott put a strong word in with the Bagulas, and the Bagulas made the final decision because it's their team, right? So what if he brought Brandon Beane in, or really vouched for the Bagulas to bring in Brandon Beane, and then there was an agreement that, what if there was an agreement that McDermott had with the Bagulas to where it's like, you know what? Since you guys hired me, I'm going to have most of the controls, right? And I'm going to be the one calling the shots, right? So, what if Brandon Beane was like more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? More of a front man. Not saying that he didn't make any decisions, but what if he was like a front man, like, so to speak, to where, whatever McDermott said had to go, and then Beane had to eat it, or Beane had to be the face of it. What if that was the case? Hypothetically speaking, what if that were the case? Because you have to think, if McDermott got there first, and if he had leverage, or if he got there first, that means that McDermott probably had leverage. And during the time that Beane was there, what if Beane was making chess moves to increase his leverage within the organization to where he could force McDermott out, right? There was a key moment where we had Leslie Frazier as our defensive coordinator, and he just essentially just got up and quit. He was like, yeah, I'm not, yeah. I don't want to say he got up and quit, but there was see, look at this. I'm getting hit up by Bills Mafia right now because I've been dropping truth bombs in the chat or on the Facebook page, and a lot of people don't want to hear what I got to say, but that's all good. It's okay. We gonna talk this shit. Cause that's what we do over here in Tripping with Theobald Land. Right? So at the end of the day, we don't know what McDermott and Bean's relationship was, or what it dissolved into, or how it transpired. All we know is that from a leadership standpoint, Bean was the GM and McDermott was the head coach. Or right, or Bean is the GM and McDermott was the head coach. So um man, I drank that water too fast. So anyways, um I don't know. Like I said, I'm thinking what happened, or allegedly what could have happened, is with Leslie Frazier, we do know that there was a fallout with McDermott and Leslie Frazier, and then McDermott had to take over the play calling, right? It was a philosophical issue, right? So I've worked in corporate America long enough to see when people make power moves. And what like I said, I'm just this is all conjecture. It's not anything backed by proof. But what if Brandon Bean had lower leverage at the time, when Leslie Frazier and McDermott had their little riff, and then Leslie Frazier was out, right? And then what if Bean, you know, was on the side of Leslie Frazier, right? What if that was the beginning of their split, you know? And then what if Bean was in the ear of Pagula and was like, "Yo, you only gonna get but so far with Coach McDermott doing things the way he's doing it." You know what I mean? Like, what if? I'm just saying. I'm just speculating. And then a lot of people are criticizing Bean and his picks and messing up the salary cap and picking and not really giving Josh Allen enough players, or not giving the team the best players, right? So what if this was a chess move? Like what if, Bean was like, "Yo, I can't win with McDermott, but the Pagulas are beholden to McDermott because they brought him in first. So the only way I can, you know, make this right, or right the ship, is to give McDermott some BS to work with." I'm just saying hypothetically, what if that were the case, right? So what if, you know, uh Bean kind of gave McDermott insufficient pieces to work with, that that basically would lead to him getting forced out, right? I'm just speculating, right? It's like, what if that were the case, you know? Um Long story short, right? I know I've been kind of rapping for a minute on this, but long story short, um my Bills had an organizational issue, right? Um when you bring in someone, typically what happens is the owners consult with whoever, and then they bring in a GM, and then the GM hires the coach, and then if the team is failing, the owner then basically has a clock on the general manager, and then the GM has a clock on the head coach, right? So if the team is losing, if the team has been losing for like 2 or 3 years, there's going to be heat on the GM to churn and find another coach, right? That's typically how it works in the NFL, right? But in this case, we had a lot of leftover pieces from before, right? Like, you had Doug Whaley was the old GM, who then, you know, worked with the Pagulas, and the Pagulas went and hired McDermott, right? And I don't think McDermott wanted Doug Whaley as the GM. And they didn't want McDermott to have full authority of being the GM. So they had to go find the GM. So McDermott found his boy or his person that he worked with back in Carolina in Brandon Beane. Right? So, like I said, this is all speculation. This is just how I'm looking at things from the outside in, you know? But you don't have workers like there has to be hierarchy in there has to be a chain of command, right? And you don't have regular workers give input on who they want to be their manager. At least I've never seen it work that way. Like in all the companies I work for, the director was at the top. They had a vision, and if they canned a manager, we didn't even see it coming. You know, when they hired a new manager, we didn't see it coming. You know, and then if we got let go or whatever, that came from the manager that was above us, right? So that's how typically things work. So to me, we had a disruption or an inefficiency in leadership. So granted, McDermott brought culture, he brought stability to the franchise, but there was no way. I mean, in my opinion, after 7 years of me, I've been a Bills fan since like 91. Like, I've been since I was a little toddler, you know what I'm saying? And, since McDermott took over and we went to the playoffs 7 straight years or whatever without going to the Super Bowl, something had to change, man. Right? Something had to change. Like, you can't keep. And here's the thing, right? It's not even like the fact that we just lost playoff games. It was how we were losing them. Right? Like, let me let me share like I'm gonna share this with y'all right quick, right? This is something funny that also happened, right? Someone in the Bills Mafia chat put up this picture of let me just read it off to you. Let me sure you guys can see it. But they put this picture up, and they're saying that people that wanted Sean McDermott gone are bandwagon fans, and people that wanted him to stay are the loyal fans. Like, look at that shit. You know what I'm saying? First of all, I ain't no damn bandwagon fan, right? I done paid with dues and dollars. You know what I'm saying? So you can't question me not being a fan, right? I'm just looking at what makes sense. But basically, it said, we only know winning. Why isn't he perfect? Fire McDermott, right? That's what this picture was saying. And then you had the loyal fans. We remember the dark ages. He built this team. So basically, the loyal fans in this picture they were like the loss of or being bad for so long hurt so much that they rather just be average and not make it to the Super Bowl and win the whole shit, right? And then they were calling McDermott the builder, right? So I had a comment that I replied to in this post, and my reply to this post was I said, if the builder would have told Josh, if the builder would have told Josh to take a knee at 9 seconds at the end of the first half, the builder would still be building. The builder would still be coaching right now, right? Like we be in the championship game. That 3 points, when I saw that play happen in the game, I was like, this is gonna come back to haunt us. And when we lose this game, I said Sean McDermott is gone. I'm not saying I wanted him to be gone, but I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone, right? And a lot of people are saying, well, he didn't fumble the ball. That's on Josh Allen. Nah, that play, that specific play at the end of the first half at 9 seconds, that was on McDermott. Like we got rattled and we tried to come back and do some crazy shit. We acted like the game was over, and we had 9 seconds to do like I don't know what with, and then he didn't want to take a knee. So to me, when I saw that, I said this is gonna come back and bite us in the ass, and I said this is gonna cause McDermott. I said that when that play happened because that was classic epic Buffalo Bills meltdown. But then yeah, we were grouped later on, but there wouldn't have been a need to go to overtime because we would have been in the league because we wouldn't have given them 3 points, right? So, thought that was interesting. Um, here's the part that hurts, man. I'm not even going to front, man. Like, here's the part that hurts, right? Is this is like the farewell game because a few weeks ago we played our last game in Highmark Stadium in Old Highmark, and you see these pictures, man. They're so eerie, right? You see McDermott looking at the old locker room, and then you see him looking at Old Highmark in the field, and it was kind of an illusion of things to come, like he got left behind. Like me personally, I thought they were going to still give him another year because they just built that new stadium, right? And we have to, the stadium's not paid for. I mean, I don't know. Well, the city paid for half of the stadium, the Pagulas paid for the other half, but you know, when it comes to business, you don't want to disrupt shit. You want to make sure that you maximize ticket sales, you know? So I thought they were going to hold on to him because they're like, yo, we don't want to change too much with this new stadium coming to play. But they said, nah, they said it's time to go. They said it's time to go. So, nah, this picture here hurts, man. Cause like I wanted to see, you never want to see someone that built something not be able to at least step foot into the new shit or into the future. You know what I'm saying? But it's a business, right? And this is a cold game, right? A lot of people, man, got to study House of Cards and the 48 Laws of Power, man, because you see how people move around and jockey, right? And that's what I think happened, man. I think McDermott and Bean worked together in the past, and maybe they had their differences in the past, maybe they didn't, but McDermott thought enough to reach out to him to pull him up, but he didn't realize that, yo, this could be the dude that ends up firing me, you know? So I thought that was interesting. So that leads us into the following question, right? And the following question is, have you ever had to pretend to like somebody? Have you ever had to pretend to like somebody? Oh, so before I get into that, I got to address the goggles, right? A lot of people are like, yo, why do you wear ski goggles and why do you wear this? And I'm like, nah, first off, right? These are not ski goggles. These are champagne goggles, right? These are for celebrating, right? When you get the chip, man, you put these on, man, we shaking bottles, man. Anywho, I just figured I would throw that in there, in case you guys were wondering. This is perfect Buffalo Bills attire, man. Right? Champagne goggles kind of dry, but hey, one day these gonna get covered with champagne from celebration. But anyways, but yeah, back on the question at hand. Have you ever had to pretend to like someone, right? And this probably could have been the case with, McDermott and Bean. They could have been symbiotes. Or did I say that word right? Is it symbiotes or symbiotes? Anyhow, a symbiote or a symbiote, or however you say the word, is basically things or organisms that depend on other organisms for survival, right? Right, and it can be used in like for anything really. You know what I'm saying? But they could have been symbiotes, right? They could have been like, yo, we not best friends, but I gotta work with this dude. I gotta pretend to like this dude to get what I want. I had to pretend to like somebody one time, man, and that shit is a pain in the ass, man. Man, this was what, 2 jobs ago, or the job before my current job right now. I worked in corporate America. I still work in corporate America, but um, had this job, man, and uh, how should I put it? At the time I was hired to work where I was working, I had about mm, I had about mm, I had close to 10 years of experience, so I kind of knew what I was doing, right? Um, and I came from an organization that was very, very stringent in my discipline or in my skill set. So when I went to this other job, it was like taking an ant to a boot, you know? Um, so we had this guy, he was probably like close to 50, if not 50, when we hired him on, right? Because I was supposed to interview him, but I had to go out of town. Um, and all the other coworkers interviewed him, and they told the manager, do not hire him. They said, do not hire this guy. But she hired him anyway, you know? Um and the main reason why people said don't hire him was they said don't hire him because one, um he's not like he wasn't sincere. Like he kind of seemed like he was a hustler or like a schemer, you know? And another reason why they said, don't hire him was because he just seemed a little too full of himself, you know? So boss hired him anyway, and he was on some Boy Scout shit, right? Like we hired him, and I remember the first day or the first time I interacted with him, right? It was me, him, and my other coworker George, and we all went out to get lunch on a Friday, and you know, like we're all working on different things, right? Like I'm working on a subsystem, and George is working on I'm working on subsystem B, George is working on subsystem A, and then the other guy got assigned to work on subsystem C, which coupled with my subsystem, right? So we're at this restaurant, man, and we're like we're waiting online for our food, and he was like, "Hey Andre, hey man, hey, how long is it gonna take you to get the requirements done for X, Y, or for what you're working on?" And I said, I said with the politics of the company and um, with just the culture of the company and you know things that have to be undone to actually do it right. I said it's gonna take me about a year. And, and this dude, like, this dude scoffed in my face and was like, "Huh, well, I'm gonna be done with my stuff in a month." And I was like, "Okay, cool, let's see it." I didn't say that. I just thought that. So, um, when when the guy got hired, we were like at this, like we were at the same rank, and um, he would just pump out bullshit every day, man. Like he didn't have the slightest clue about what system engineering was. He didn't know what it was, didn't know the importance of it. Just he was there to just pump out bullshit, man. Like he was looking like Kermit the Frog every day, typing on the typewriter, just doing this like on the keyboard, doing this shit, just pumping out shit, right? Not thinking about nothing, not asking no questions, not trying to figure nothing out. He just wanted to push, 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 push paper, push bullshit. And the game he played, right? The game this motherfucker played was he would pump all this shit out, and then he would And then he would then go and then delegate it to other people around him on the team and then wipe his hands clean of it and say, hey guys, everything is done. Don't touch it, okay? Just everything is done, but you have to own it. He said, everything is done. Just don't touch anything. It's already done. And we said, okay. And then outside groups would get the requirements and look at the bullshit and be like, yo, what is this? You know? And then we would get it and we would say, look, man, I probably got to redo this because there was no thought here. And then when you bring it back to so-and-so and he's like, then he would go argue with the people and tell them, that's your job to figure it out. It's not my job. And I'm like, oh man, this dude does not know what the hell he doing. I remember one time, man, me and this dude almost came to fisticuffs, man. We almost came like, man, we almost went to fisticuffs, man. That shit was hilarious. You know? I remember, man, me and him scheduled a meeting in this back room. And we were talking about like I forgot, I think it was like either media store, like we were trying to design or define how like media storage was going to work or how we were going to, it was something technical, right? So I'm explaining to him how we did it at a company that I worked at prior. And he cut me off and was like, nah, it doesn't work like that. And I'm like on the board drawing everything out. And then he just comes up to me, man, and then snatches the marker from my hand and starts shaking. And he's like, it doesn't work like that. And I'm just like, oh, nah. I'm like, he cornered me up. So I felt threatened. So I was like, yeah, we done here for the day. So I went back to my desk and I was like, yo, I cannot work with this dude. You know what I'm saying? And he was just very, very petty, man. Very petty. God, man. I mean, it's here's the thing, right? What I've learned about what I've learned about myself in that situation is you can work with people you don't like, right? Or you can pretend to like people that you don't like, right? Because I had to because I need to get that check. I needed that paycheck. So, people like I worked with this dude for like 6 years. And people are like, man, how can you work with him? How can you work? I'm like, man, I need that check. I need that money. Um, but nah, he was like, and then it wasn't enough for him just to. So, anyways, he would do his bullshit, like pump out stuff, no thinking, no accountability. But amongst us, he would talk down to us. But then in other meetings, he would look like he would elevate, like he would like put himself in a position to look like he was our leader, you know? And really all he did was like he took our ideas and took what we said and framed it as if he came up with it. He was one of them kind of dudes, man. And then our boss made him like basically a manager, essentially, or basically made him a lead. And then we had to always go and report to him, so it got to the point to where he would start micromanaging my work. And then he would so I had to like work around this dude. I had to throw red herrings at him. I had to, like when we had to give status on what we were working on, if I had A, B, and C, right, I would tell him that basically what I was supposed to be working on, I would spend less effort on that. But the stuff I wasn't supposed to be working on, I spent the most effort on that. And that way, and then I would give like quote unquote like false status, you know, I I would give false status, to protect myself and my job and my work um and my integrity, So the game I played with him was he would always be like, man, what's taking you so long with this? Like, what's taking you so long to get A done? I'm like, man, I'm trying. Like, I would come up with some bullshit. And then once I got A done, I would say, oh yeah, by the way, I got C and B done, right? And it's already in review. Because if I did it that way, it would get out and he couldn't stop the process, right? He couldn't stop the review process from happening. But if I would have worked everything down the chain in order and told him my exact status, uh, he would have like told me that, okay, well, before you send it out to peer review, you got to give it to me, right? And let me look at it. And then when he looked at it, he would fuck it up. Sorry, pardon my language. He would mess it up and then have it be all ass word backwards. And then I got to put my name on it, right? So that's the game we were playing. So I would always work on, is I would always like give like inverse status, but then get everything done. So he was out, so he couldn't stop anything, right? Um, so from a professional standpoint, terrible guy to work with, terrible person. Like, look, here's how bad this dude is to work with, right? If I'm at a company working and I'm doing what I'm doing or whatever, and if my manager or director slides his resume across my desk and says, hey, we just got this resume. We see that you guys worked at the same company. Hey, do you recommend us hiring him? I would tell him just like this. I would say just like this. I would say, look, if you're considering hiring him, I'm looking for another job. Right? I'm out. Like I'm not doing that again. That's how bad it was to work with him. And then on a personal level, he was just very, very insincere, man. Like maybe he was a nice guy outside of work, but just very insincere, man. Like I remember I would come into work and he would try to start bullshit conversation with me in the morning. Like if you know anything about me, I do not like bullshit conversation. I don't have the stomach for it, man. So every morning he would come in and be like, hi, Andre. Hey man, so what'd you do this weekend? I'm thinking to myself, man, like why do you care? Like I'm trying to get my work so I can get away from you. Like I didn't say that, but that's my thought process and all that, right? So he would get to the point to where he'd be like, well, what he said, he'd be like, yeah, well, he's like, you're gonna tell me what you do for the weekend. If not, I'm gonna find out. He's just like, all right. I was like, man, good luck with that. But nah, man, he was, man, just I would have to come into work every day and I would have to, and people would laugh, man. Like I had my cube mates laughing. They would be like in stitches. Like my cube mates would be dying because like my words would come out, but it wouldn't match my tone. Right? Um, like my words would come out, but it wouldn't match my tone. Like, for example, he would say, like, hey man, how was your weekend? What did you do for your weekend? Or he'd be like, hey, what did you do for the weekend? Right? And I'd be like, oh man, I read a book and I rode a bike, you know? Or I would say shit like that, right? It was very like over the top superficial, right? He just made it up and people would be dying. And then he would look at me like he knew that, you know, I was being insincere and he knew that I knew that he was being insincere. So that's how we kind of tiptoed around that shit, you know? Um, and I remember we had to go on a road trip, like we had to go on we had to go on business travel one time. And he just assumed that since he's the elder, that he's gonna get the rental car and he's gonna be the one that drives and we can share, we can go together. And man, we had like an hour and a half like road trip. No, we had to fly somewhere and then we had to drive for like an hour to get to our final destination. And man, he was like, it got real uncomfortable in that car, man. Like that car ride got real uncomfortable, man. He kept prying into like what I do at home after work and what do I do. And he was like, yeah, he was like, look, I'm gonna make it my last mission to find out what it is that you do. And I told him, I said, look, man, you are walking on very treacherous water right now, man. You're walking on very, very like thin ice right now. I said, this is very uncomfortable. Um, I hope you did your harassment training, because right now you are violating all of your harassment training, right? Like it was, I didn't say that part to him, but I was like, yo, I was like, yo, you need to fucking chill, man. You know? And I had to tolerate it because like I needed that paycheck, right? So that's my situation of one person I had to pretend to like, right? Well, here's the thing, right? To him, he knew that I didn't really care for him, right? Um, but to my manager, I had to make it look like I liked this dude, right? That's what it was, right? Is I did all the song and dance bullshit to make it look like um, I liked him because my manager basically had this thing where she said, you know, if you make my job hard, you're gonna have a problem, right? So if she has to keep policing me and this guy, and he puts himself on in the good lane, I might be out of a job. You know what I mean? So I knew the game, right? I knew the game, you know. And when I tried to, because at first she paired us up as a unit, and he was doing everything opposite of what she was saying to do, you know. And when she forced me to work with him, I just reminded her. I said, "Look, you said we should be doing this, but he's doing that." And then she just started she started like yelling at me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Basically, if you want to keep your job, you got to be buddy buddy with this dude. So, long story short, my customer ended up being my manager and my lead, as opposed to um our actual customer that was paying us to get the work done. You know what I mean? So that's the one time I had to pretend to like somebody. How about you guys, man? Put it in the chat. You know, have you ever had to work with, or not work with, have you ever had to pretend to like someone? And if so, how did you deal with it? How did it make you feel? And why did you have to do that? Put it in the comments. Let me know. Um, so that's all I got for today, man. You know, uh, what are your thoughts on on come on, Dre? What are This is why it's called tripping with Theo Bowl, man. Like I said, I be tripping in speech and thought. I made it almost an hour into it, or I made it past an hour, and the bullshit came out, right? Um, so now, what are y'all thoughts, man? Like on the Bills, like what are your thoughts on the whole Brandon Bean, McDermott, and Pagula situation? Let me know in the comment section, man. Um, Also, who are some coaching candidates that you want to see? I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna throw two names out there, right? Two names of coaches I want to see are one Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury. A lot of people are on my ass about Cliff Kingsbury. They're like, yo, that's the dumbest decision to make. That's the dumbest thing to say. Why would you want to bring in Cliff Kingsbury? He didn't do anything with the Arizona Cardinals and the Hobbit, and then, he got fired by the Commanders. I'm like, yes, let's get on him right now, because when the Commanders had their season that they had 2 seasons ago, right? When it was Jaden Daniels' rookie season, that offense looked unstoppable. It looked like they were just moving the chains, man. They were just it was like just it was like putting garbage in a disposal. They were just shoving that shit down there, man. They were just moving that ball down the field, man. You know? And if Cliff Kingsbury, like I said, like every quarterback that Cliff Kingsbury worked with was an improvement, right? Like first he worked with the Hobbit, or AKA Kyler Murray, because he's short. Then he actually got a quarterback that had like a little height to him in Jaden Daniels, but he was still like like real slender. He was like he's still like kind of lightweight, which is why I think he got hurt this year. But you get Josh Allen and Cliff Kingsbury together, I don't think anyone has an answer for that. So to me, Cliff Kingsbury is the answer to really unlock Josh Allen and just make our offense an unstoppable force. And I think he could bring in a good defensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator I would want to see. It's not going to happen again, but I'm a big fan of Jim Schwartz, man. Jim Schwartz can dial up a defense. That's one thing Jim Schwartz can do is dial up a defense. But he was our defensive coordinator already for like a season a few years ago, or this was like over a decade ago, I think. And another name that I wouldn't mind. I know it's a long shot, and he's playing or he's coaching in a national championship in a half hour or so. So I got to get ready for that. It's Cignetti, the coach of Indiana. He went to the Indiana Hoosiers, a laughingstock football program, man. I remember when I lived in Iowa, Indiana was always at the bottom of the Big Ten, man. Everybody beat up on Indiana. And when Cignetti got there, man, he flipped that program quick. And it's like there are no weaknesses in that program, man. Like I said, Indiana is about to take that strap to Mike. Indiana's about to take that strap to Michael Irvin and them Canes. Right? Indiana's about to take that strap to Michael Irvin and them Canes, man. It's going to be ugly. So if we got Kirk Cignetti, I mean, is it Kirk Cignetti? Let me make sure I get the name right, man. I be messing up people's first names a lot, man. I got to work on that, man. I be messing up people's first names, man. I got to get better at that, man. Like a lot of times you just know people by their last name, Let me just make sure I get it right. I was right. It's Kirk Cignetti. Okay. I don't know why it seemed wrong, right? Like when you spell sometimes, like how when you like spell simple words, the word look wrong. But anyways, Kirk Cignetti, that might be in the play. Who knows? But what are your thoughts, man? Who do you want to see be the next head coach of the Bills? Put it in the comment. Let me know. I said comment. Put it in the comments and let me know. So yeah, this felt good. Happy New Year. We're gonna keep this party train going. And that's all I got. So without further ado, I'm out of here, folks. Peace. Yep. Tripping with Theo Bold.
Let's go.
Caliente.
Tripping. Yep. Tripping. Tripping. Tripping with Theo Bold.
Tripping with Theo Bold.